Is this working? We're gonna find out. It does look like it's online. Yeah. Okay, folks, I'm gonna keep this relatively brief, but I've been looking at my position within the RPG hobby today, and I've been looking at what I can say that is in the service of this identity that I've created here on this channel, and looking to how I can respond to this moment as the CGA. And that's what I'm gonna do. Um, that's what I'm really keen to do, and I hope that you will look to join in with me on that. Um, so without further ado, let's do this. I think the stream is now set to public, and that means I just need to share this URL out to the Twitters, and I think everybody who is interested in coming over for the stream will be able to come over. I threw this together and got to pick up my son in like just a few minutes, but I need to do my part as the CGA in order to do my part outside of this identity. Putting everything that I can into responding to this crisis, and that includes this channel, frankly. So if you're interested in what I have to say for today, which will be about our RPG hobby, absolutely, stay tuned for just a moment while I tweet out the URL for the stream. Okay, so here's the deal. Let me make sure that I stay visible to chat. Good afternoon, chat. Hello. So, we, as role players, are called upon to roleplay villains. We're called upon to look into the eye of evil and think about what it is that motivates that kind of wickedness. And, in some respects, to at least allow this virtual machine inside of our head that we call role-playing to imagine what motivates the villainy in order to have it respond. And what I mean to say is that, that can be a source of trauma, sure, that can be hard. Somebody will tell me you don't actually have to do that, and you can just kind of put up a sort of a Potemkin village of a villain. How terribly appropriate for that reference to apply in so many different ways at once. Well, I think that our villains should be more than Potemkin villages, and that in the practice of being a good role player and a good game master, we can see villainy when we see it with our eyes. We know it when we see it. There's been so many words said about how when there's smoke, there's fire. Well, what if I told you that perhaps in the praxis of being the kind of game master that I've been trying to teach here on the channel, and that I will continue to try and teach out there in the wider RPG universe and learn from the RPG universe too. This is a two-way thing, okay? Like, I don't know everything, but I'm trying to share by having a media identity, because I think that I'm at a point where that's part of my responsibility to the community. Well, I'm telling the community that as we have practiced role-playing, as we have practiced bringing villains to life, and you don't have to look at his smug mug any longer, as we are seeing what is happening today and all the different steps that have led to this moment, we've watched this, and it echoes, at least in some respect. I suspect that if you're kind of in a mid-career GM, that's my target viewership, is people who are looking to grow and expand their knowledge of different skills, within the game mastery craft. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm always looking to improve and find a way to hone what I do in order to enjoy it more and to find a greater fullness of play with the human beings around me at the table. Well, that includes the fact that I've practiced a lot of thinking about bad guys, including in a geopolitical sense. And we also put our player characters in situations, most of us, throughout the course of our lives. I don't think I'm presuming so much when I say I think most game masters that I've ever met have put the characters in their campaigns into situations that challenge them to confront villainy head on. So we've created role playing experiences where our players have gone and confronted villains with force of arms. And I'm going to include that part. I'm not going to mince words. A warfare as a form of confrontation with evil and wickedness is valid in our role-playing games. And in some respects, there's a moral praxis that's happening around the table as we consult with each other as like this, inclusive and diverse table, hopefully at our homes, but in the wider hobby and inclusive and diverse community. Well, we can have discourse and we can arrive at things about our hobby. We can arrive at notions. And I think that, we are informed, well informed enough to call it like we see it. There are people who want to be brave right now and are being brave in a very real war. And I contemplated whether I was going to directly link this and make this a telethon, but the National Bank of Ukraine has a real fundraiser to actually give real gun money, the real thing, actual material aid to the Ukrainian armed forces. I mean, I'll tell you every day, to go donate to the Red Cross. Lots of people will do that too. Other people are doing that, okay? If you want to affect things right now, and I don't even think that this is a moral quandary for me to do this and to use my identity to do this, I'm just informing you that there exists a way for you to give your money directly to the people with the guns in their hands right now fighting this war. And that's pretty huge, and I just want to inform folks that that's there. With that said, okay, Vladimir Putin is a villain. The people of Russia may, in fact, be recognizing him for thus, and really putting their lives out on the line from the scenes that we are seeing from Moscow, and I think it's so hard to follow everything that's happening right now. And frankly, I'm very invested in it, which is why I'm here to talk to you. So suffice it to say, the promise of the stream, hopefully, is that I will look at the current bad guy through the light of a Imperial villain in Star Wars, if you were to be playing the Star Wars role-playing game. And let's talk about the qualities and the nature of Grand Moff Putin, who is very much believes that the prestige of his core world has fallen low. And over the course of his career, serving in the Imperial Navy, he's wanted to bring the prestige of his core world, whatever core world that he's from. Okay, we're not going to make any presumptions about that, but he's very proud of how he's groomed the cream of the crop of Imperial officers to kind of staff his battleships, And there are entire resource worlds that have found their digested remains in the bellies of Kuat drive yards, courtesy of this campaign. The Tarkin Doctrine is, well observed under his command, which is to say, Imperial Star Destroyers arrive in system using their Class 1 hyperdrives to move as swiftly as they please and come and go. Well, that means that the Tarkin Doctrine is a very real destruction of any source of resistance to the Empire. When an Imperial Star Destroyer and its sizable contingent of stormtroopers show up, one of the things that they can do, that they have the impunity to do, is to obliterate the ability of that world to defend itself. And that is exactly the war aim that this guy has spoken to. In his very real, old-fashioned declaration of war, he has said Ukraine must demilitarize. In the days leading up to that, he had Sergei Lavrov, his foreign minister, let everyone know that Ukraine did not have the right to sovereignty. As in a country, no longer it had lost its privileges to exist and to rule itself. That's what sovereignty, means. And so you can imagine that in the course of the Galactic Civil War, I think that you will absolutely recognize that there will likely have been multiple times where the home rule, the sovereignty of a given system or region or sector of space was totally usurped by the Empire. Now, there may be times when the Empire appointed sector governors and so on in consultation with worlds. Notwithstanding, the presumption was always that the fascists of the Galactic Empire presumed so much as to dictate who had the right to govern themselves and who did not. That's what an empire presumes unto itself. I am open to the accusation that America may be an empire. I've spent a lot of time contemplating that throughout my college years and up to this, my middle age, and I'm willing to have that discussion with people. Okay, it doesn't negate the fact that this guy is engaging in empire. That's what Putin is. He thinks he knows who gets to be king. I hope that everybody has a great afternoon, and you take this moment to consider your role that you want to play here in the real world. You take this moment to think about how you will challenge players in your role-playing worlds in the future. And what sort of choices are you going to put before folks? Are you going to keep challenging people to confront villainy? Because, surprise, I'm actually not done. Because I want to talk about little Latvia. I want to talk about this little country on the Baltic Sea. And this is just, it's mind-blowing to talk about. It's mind-blowing to even think about the level of audacity that these people have shown. Just before the war started yesterday, literally just before, a military plane from Latvia arrived in Kiev full of Stinger missiles. They are literally next on Putin's list. And using their audacity, using their free agency to choose a move on their turn, they use their military, their flag, to give aid and comfort and real weaponry to the people who were about to stand in the path of the bad guy. So think about that also when it comes to role-playing agents of rebellion. Think about what it means to be rebels in the time of the Galactic Civil War, because it also means having the bravery and the absolute courage to step up right into the path of the worst sanctions, the dispossession, the shame The social media censorship which we would endure if I was to tell you that you could donate money right now to the Ukrainian armed forces and they would use it for actual warfare right now in a war that is being fought. Now, this is not a telethon. I'm not suggesting you should do that. I just want you to know that it's possible for anyone to make that choice. And from a role playing standpoint, what is going to happen to you in your real life if you did that instead of giving $20 to the Red Cross? I'm not saying don't give $20 to the Red Cross too, but I'm talking about how most of us right now we are thinking twice about the consequences, the social consequences of saying that, we should help these people and that nobody deserves this. And, like literally somebody put those blasters in the hands of those guys at the beginning of A New Hope, when that Corellian Corvette was being boarded by stormtroopers, and those guys were laying down their lives to give Princess Leia just enough time to send out a communication. Those were very human people, and there was very real looks on their faces, invested by the storytelling. Uh, by that same token, that's the first personification of the rebellion that we got from Star Wars. And that's who we're thinking of role playing when we play a game like Age of Rebellion. Hopefully somewhat more heroic, but these are not people who are casually like giving a thumbs up. These are the people who are really probably might die um, opposing Empire. And if your player character is a friend of yours, if the person who you've played who is rebelled and stood in the path of absolute villainy, of the real bad guy who's the real one doing this, it's the person whose choice it was that this is happening, and that their soldiers are literally doing the bad deeds right now. There's no equivocation. That's what's happening. Like there's preponderance of fact. Like we don't even have to like engage in this last 10 years of like quibbling over like who's right and who's wrong. He's wrong. Putin is wrong. He's the villain. He's literally the Star Wars villain right now. And let's be awake to that. And let's think about whether the player characters that you've played are actually characters that you would be friends with. That you would really give aid and comfort to your character. I'm not saying we should go to Ukraine. I've held a rifle 5 times in my life, and I wouldn't be much use backpacking across the Carpathian Mountains with a backpack full of bazookas. Slovakia's got some forests and some beautiful views, I'm sure, as spring is coming right now. It would be lovely in Slovakian mountains. Maybe I'll go hiking. But I can't. I have to take care of my son. I got to pick him up. Like, literally, I need to get in the car in 4 minutes. But this is what I've chosen to spend my afternoon doing, is just kind of putting my head together for this stream to talk about who we roleplay, which is to say people who oppose villains, who we as GMs think about what is a villain, and we think about the lengths that they will go to, the absolute flaunting of the rule of law, of the dignity of innocence. This is what villains will do. They can and do. I mean, literally right behind the Russian soldiers right now, there are Russian secret police, Rosgvardia. These are the people who, literally Chechen Rosgvardia, no less, which is to say that these are literally the guys who have, like, snuffed out whatever LGBT people there were in Chechnya. Like, they literally took people to dungeons and, like, ended any LGBT, like, existence in Chechnya. And in large part, there used to be queer culture in Russia, and there used to be a lot of really cool queer stuff coming out of Russia. Drag, especially, really owes a lot to the 2000s. And, there used to be this band which started with one word and ended with riot. And that was a huge part of, it's a huge influence and a huge voice in the punk movement. through the 2000s. The reason punk's not dead, I mean, if it isn't, is because Russia. So like we've had some connection, some real meaning to our brief relationship with a free Russia. I'm not saying that everything's perfect, but like cultures have met and shaken hands. Like if America and South Korea have kind of become buddies, and our cultures talk to each other, and it's not perfect between friends, but these cultures really are picking things up from each other really quickly, and like it's a fun relationship. Things that are fun in South Korea, they come to America and vice versa, and it seems like it's a nice moment, and we did experience a little tiny ounce of that kinship, speaking as an American, with Russia for a little while. So, like, I mean, we can think of like what's going on here and to whom, and even more so, there's just so many people that I feel connected to from the hobby who are going through a heck of a lot because of this war. And I hope that your homes will be warm enough. If they're gas to turn on the heat, it gets more expensive. I'm fearful of that, but I will do my part, and I'm sitting in the cold right now in my home, trying to keep demand down and use less of it so that more of it can get to you. And there's all sorts of different things, but maybe all of us will just be a little colder in our homes until spring comes, and that's one thing we can do, if that's all. I've said some other things that a person could consider doing, but not. I wouldn't endorse that. No, never. Except, I mean, yeah, maybe I would. I've mentioned those earlier in the stream. I gotta go pick up my son and continue with my day. I have a lot of obligations as a father, but as the CGA, I was able to at least do this. Godspeed, Ukraine.